just a few hours, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will take the stage here in Philadelphia. And tonight's debate will be the first time the two presidential candidates have ever met. Trump is set to arrive in Philadelphia during the 6 p.m. Eastern hour, and Harris arrived on Monday after preparing for the debate in Pittsburgh yesterday. She said in a radio interview that former President Trump would lie during the debate.
There's no floor for him in terms of how low he will go, and we should be prepared for that.
And for Harris, it's an opportunity to introduce herself to voters. As many Americans say, they still don't fully know her or her policy positions. While Trump is expected to face a tougher battle than the one against then Democratic nominee President Biden back in June.
If I destroy her in the debate, they'll say, Trump suffered a humiliating defeat tonight, no matter what.
And Weijia Jiang and Robert Costa join us now here in Philadelphia. They've both been covering all sides of this wild campaign. Great to see you both. So this is the first debate of the general election between these two, but it's not the first debate that we've had in this general election. Weijia, I want to start with you because we've seen Donald Trump debate in this kind of setting many times before, but we haven't seen Kamala Harris in this type of setting in a presidential debate in a general election. Talking to her campaign, and I know you've been covering her all weekend as she's been here in Pennsylvania, how does her campaign see tonight? What are they hoping to accomplish?
You're right. This is her first presidential debate ever, and this is Donald Trump's 7th. So he certainly is familiar with this setting, with the format. And so she approached this like a very diligent student. And that's what she's been doing in Pittsburgh for 5 days, and then here in Philadelphia. She's been studying. She has been looking at his previous performances because, you know, she has records of that. She's looking for information about how to go on the offense, but also be defensive in case he throws attack lines her way. She's also been practicing. Her team built her a stage that replicates the sort of environment she'll face tonight, along with the bright lights, so there are no surprises. She did a walkthrough today, so she knows what she faces. And she is approaching this, again, you know, taking in as much information as she can so she can perform tonight.
You know, it stands in such stark contrast, of course, Bob, to how former President Trump prepares. His campaign likes to say that he doesn't need this kind of preparation that Kamala Harris and Biden did, quite frankly. I know you've been talking to campaign sources. What are they telling you about what they're hoping to accomplish tonight?
Well, on the Harris side, I'm hearing the same thing as Weijia, that preparation is key and that she is getting ready for this in a very formulaic way, a methodical way. Former President Trump is taking a different approach. It's not that he's not preparing. It's that he's having these informal discussions with allies like Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, making phone calls to people he knows, talking through the issues. He sees this, I'm told, by some of his key confidants, as an opportunity to kind of read the room, to see how Vice President Harris is going to approach him in terms of talking points, level of rhetorical aggression, how she's going to try to frame him either as someone who is corrupt or tied to the business establishment. And he's going to wait and watch in the first 10, 15 minutes to get a sense of where she's going. And then once he has a conclusion, at least early on, about where she's going with her strategy, he'll react to that. And there's a belief inside the Trump campaign that he succeeded, in their view, in the first debate because he reacted to President Biden's performance rather than, as they say in politics, going for the kill when he recognized Biden was maybe having a weak night. He let it unfold in its own way, and he just kind of stayed steady in the moment. So Trump's much more of a reactive player on the debate stage, and we'll see Vice President Harris. I'm told she does have that instinct as well. As much as we keep hearing from her aides and advisors about preparation, she's someone who rose through the ranks of California politics, a former prosecutor in San Francisco, the state of California. She knows how to navigate a courtroom. Now, this isn't a prosecution, but it may take some of those extemporaneous skills to come to the fore if she really wants to have an effective night.
She was hoping this was going to be a prosecution. She was hoping that she would be able to have a direct exchange, engagement with her opponent. But as we know, she ultimately agreed to the mics being muted when it's not their turn to talk. And her team feels like that's a real disadvantage for her. One, because she can't cross-check Trump in real time. Two, because they believe it serves as a tool that Trump normally wouldn't have, which is to give him discipline on a silver platter by not letting him talk, when in reality, you know, they were hoping that he would, quote, reveal who he really is with an unmuted mic.
And it's so interesting because that was a request from the Biden team when Biden was in this race, and it did seem to serve Trump in a way in the last debate. You know, we talk so much ahead of each debate about how much debates really matter when the electorate is so polarized already and there's so very few voters anymore left in the middle. But as we saw back in June, that was one of the most consequential debates we've ever seen. I mean, it essentially got the movement going to for Democrats to remove Biden or to get him to drop out of the race. I'm curious how you two see this one. Just, you know, under 60 days to go until Election Day. Voters will start voting soon in some of these big states with early voting. Does this debate have the potential to really move the needle here, or are these campaigns just hoping to get through and to speak to their particular bases?
Well, when it comes to Vice President Harris, the stakes are equally high for both candidates. They're both in the midst of a general election. But she has not run in a primary in this cycle. She has done one interview since she became the nominee. That's been on television. She's done the radio interviews, as we've seen. But this is a chance for her to introduce herself to the country, in addition to what she did at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, by more forcefully going on to her policy positions and articulating them to a national audience. For Trump, there's a belief inside his campaign, right or wrong, that he's a global figure. He's a celebrity. He's already in the history books. And this is not maybe going to change a lot of minds, but it could rouse his base, make them motivated to come out and vote for him this fall. And it could in some ways reassure some voters that he is an alternative to the status quo. And that's what he wants to be seen as tonight. There's a battle over the mantra of change. Who is the change candidate? Is it the fresh Democratic nominee who has come out of nowhere to be the Democratic nominee, even though she's the incumbent vice president? Or is it the former president who still likes to frame himself as an anti-establishment figure? That is the battle tonight. Who walks out of that room at the Constitution Center in Philadelphia and can say with confidence, I am the candidate of change based on how I performed tonight? Yeah,
and each candidate is accusing the other of being essentially the incumbent. And it's so interesting to me because Kamala Harris is the sitting vice president, and yet we see in polling that people still say that they don't know a lot about her and her policies.
And that's why this debate is so critical for Harris, not to mention the fact that it could be the only debate. Because in other cycles, we rely on 3 debates. So if you don't perform well in one, you can come back and sort of have redemption. But these 2 nominees have not agreed to another debate, and we don't know that they will, with just 8 weeks left until Election Day. So this could be, you know, one of the only opportunities she has to have such a massive audience and to have clips play on social media and be in the news cycle for days to come, which is why another part of her strategy is to rehearse crisp 2-minute answers under the clock, so that she can be ready to deliver the message in that short time that she will have tonight.
And just an additional point to build on what we just said. The Commission on Presidential Debates, this nonpartisan organization, ran the debates for years. Now, a lot of people are confused when I'm on the campaign trail about why there aren't 3 debates this time. It's because both of the campaigns decided to walk away from this nonpartisan commission that organized the debates and negotiate their own debate with a respective news network, whether it's CBS with the vice presidential debate in early October, or ABC News tonight, which is hosting this debate. It's simulcast, of course, on CBS. We hope you stay with us and watch it here.
That's a good plug.
But it's an intriguing political point that the Commission on Presidential Debates, which in the 80s and 90s and 2000s had a 3-decade run as a very powerful group, is suddenly not part of this whole process.
Yeah, a lot of norms being broken this cycle. We never know what to expect, so we just cover it as it comes. And so we will all be watching tonight. And it's such an honor to cover this wild campaign with the two of you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And a programming note, we'll be anchoring another edition of America Decides right here in the debate spin room in Philadelphia, coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern. And the debate itself, as we were just mentioning, is hosted by ABC News, but you can also watch it right here on CBS News 24/7, and that starts at 9 p.m. Eastern.